is just fantastic. Captain's Log, Subdate 210315.1. A second crack within the ISO cubes has been found. To compensate, we've replicated phaser turrets set to blanket stun so much as a hint of violence. We also replaced the Neutraloaf with Moldy Malt Loaf, so there'll be no risk of clogging up the toilets. Hello, and welcome to the Halls of Injustice. Today we have inmates number 064, David Richard Mansell William Lee Smith. We're going to call him inmate 064 going forward because nobody is going to use all those names when you are but a number to me. He has been busted over the years for a number of crimes. The more recent one got him arrested and led to a rather interesting fallout that got him incarcerated. One of the crimes I don't really care about all that much, but for the sake of it, it's not that aspect of inmate 064 that I'm interested in. We will, of course, talk about it, but the other aspect leads to another video I would like to do on this channel, concerning those that you might have seen videos on Facebook or YouTube of, called nonce hunting. Just an FYI, no, he is not a nonce hunter. He was in fact hunted for being a nonce. If anyone is familiar with the channel Cognitive Thought, he has very strong views on nonces. Usually it involves something called rope. I only mention that because him saying get and no, I'm not finishing that sentence, did in fact come across my head the moment I mentioned what inmate 064 is. On 3 separate occasions, inmate 064 has been caught by the police in possession of indecent images of children. There are other things as well, we'll get to them soon. More recently, in October 2020, the police went to inmate 064's home after receiving a tip by one of the nonce hunter groups. Initially, he was arrested on allegations of child grooming, and because of that, was told to hand over any device that was internet enabled. So he gave police officers a phone, a laptop, and a PlayStation games console. Obviously, that's not going to be enough. They will not believe him since this is the 3rd time that he has been arrested on charges relating to children. So the police obtained a search warrant and proceeded to tear that property apart. When they got to the bedroom, this is where it gets a little interesting and almost a bit of a sidestep from the initial charge. They'd found out that his bedroom was a farm for cannabis. Inside, he had installed a growing tent, a drying tent, lamps, filters, and a hydroponic feeding system. There were, at the time of the search, 5 living plants, and another 3 which had been harvested. Now, for the sake of it, this is quite a small setup, but it does show something within inmate 064. A degree of knowledge. It showed he had invested heavily in it. He himself concedes he had learnt to do this via online videos and had spent roughly £1,000 on the setup with an additional £60 on the seeds. His reasoning for making cannabis was not to make money, but to treat his low mood and his lack of focus. Granted, there are other avenues he could have explored, and I also wasn't aware that cannabis had the potential to heighten one's ability to focus. My mistake. Clearly, I need to learn more. But this isn't where the search ends. You see, there was something else found at his property, something which I'm not overly fond of, but if it does stop him going near kids, I kinda get it. But for the sake of it, no, I do not condone it. In fact, I'm okay with you not owning it and seeking treatment for your clear and obvious condition. Then again, you've crossed certain lines. So what was it? A doll-sized sex doll, which he claimed he only ever used when watching pornography. But this is where it gets a little darker. The next day, an officer returned to inmate 064's home to dismantle the cannabis tents and equipment, and while he was in that room, he heard a phone ring. Following the ringtone, he went to the window of that room and found another one that had been put at the far end of the external window sill. I thought, upon hearing about this, perhaps it was for customers, because he was lying about the farm itself. Turns out, no. Actually, what was on the phone explained why he had the doll-sized sex doll. 2 films of child abuse hidden in a folder, one of which was more than 6 minutes long, and by the way, if you're triggered, the next 10 seconds you want to skip, showed a toddler aged between 2 and 4 being, not finishing that sentence. In 2017, he was sentenced to 15 months in prison suspended for 2 years, after the police had twice found indecent images on his phone. Once in 2016 and the other in 2017 while he was being investigated for the first one. Officers also found back then that he had taken part in Skype video chats with other people where they had discussed the sexual abuse of children. The fact those 2 were suspended aggravates me considerably. When inmate 064 went to trial, he did in fact plead guilty to 2 counts of possessing an indecent image and 1 count of producing cannabis. I don't care about the latter, I really don't. So his defender, Robert Chudley, had said that inmate 064 accepted a custodial sentence was inevitable, and that the mitigation he was putting before the court would only go to length, saying that his defendant had ongoing issues with anxiety and depression, and does not do much socially, but wants to rehabilitate himself and to better himself, which I hard X to doubt. He has done the same thing over and over again. Anxiety and depression can in fact be treated medically. Social issues, sadly the onus for that is on the perp, and inmate 064 is entirely responsible for that aspect. Even the judge, Paul Thomas QC, conceded that given the defendant's offending history, that there was no prospect of rehabilitation, and that in this case, a sentence of immediate custody was in fact necessary. In the UK, this affords one an opportunity. Rehabilitation can in fact take place behind bars. Treatment of certain conditions can in fact happen as well. Because the defendant had pled guilty, inmate 064 that is, Judge Paul Thomas QC sentenced inmate 064 to a total of, and I'm going to do a drum roll for this, 9 months in prison. If the UK courts were a joke before, they certainly aren't anymore. Half of which that sentence will be served in prison before being released on license to serve the remainder in the community. Might I recommend, as this sentence is as super serial as it gets, a kindergarten to add to this Mickey Mouse sentence. Inmate 064 will spend the next 10 years on the sex offenders register and also be made subject to a sexual harm prevention order, which will control his access to the internet for as long as he is on the sex offenders register. The judge has said that if you come back before a court again of a similar kind of offending, you will be going to prison for a very long time. Much like everything else I've heard so far, hard X to doubt. 3 times. You've busted him 3 times. And you sent him down for 9 months, after an initial one for 15 months that was suspended for 2 years. Your sentences got shorter. With this case, I'd like to know what you think. Get in your cell. Thank you very much. Do let me know in the comments down below. Hope you'll have a fantastic day. Thank you all for listening.